we were told that Homi Lab is coming to pitch, Srijan is coming to pitch, and your credentials spoke for itself. Phenomenal tenure with Mr. Kalam. You have been author, educationist. And I said, how can a person manage all of this?
Take this year. Yeah, ChatGPT first, which could not crack the law exam. Then by February, it could crack the law exam.
Yeah.
Then you had the SpaceX thing, which happened.
Yes.
Then the Twitter transformation happened. Then the Chandrayaan 3 happened. I don't think any Indian would be surprised by Enigma or chaos. What do you remember from your education?
I couldn't do well in certain subjects because I didn't like the delivery from the teachers.
So if I teach you about Mars, I'll take you to Mars.
The jobs in 2030 are not the jobs invented yet.
70% of jobs which are created in the next now 7 years are not existing today. Social media influencer. 5 years ago, it was not a job. Prompt writer. 3 months ago, it was not a job. But the idea of Homi Lab is long ago, where we wanted to teach future. And it's complicated.
Hi, welcome to EtherWire Enigma series. The series is dedicated to all those who wants to understand India better. Today's episode is dedicated, of course, to the success of our safe landing for the third time on Moon. And this episode is Enigma of India's quest in future learning. My guest is pretty unique. He is someone who I think only speaks and think in the line of providing solutions. If you put a challenge, he is gonna definitely look and go beyond it. Let me give you an example. Sometime back, I came across a very interesting insight by a group called Adego, which said that the jobs in 2030 are not the jobs invented yet. So, what will this generation do if the current courses and the school curriculum does not cover the courses or skills that are required to get them placed in 2030? I'm talking about futuristic jobs. I'm talking about future of learning. And hence, this episode is where I have with me a towering personality who I would like to introduce as, you must have heard about Physics Wala, but have you heard about Space Wala? That's Srijan Singh, founder Homi Lab, world's first future learning lab right here in India. While a lot of folks saw challenge in providing the right skill set or the right education or the courses for the current generation to be truly future ready, Srijan made it happen. Let's meet Srijan right here in Enigma series. Hi Srijan, lovely to have you here.
Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to meet you and your team. It's
Lovely.
wonderful to be on this show.
Great.
And rightly, Enigma India. It's like mystifying.
Mystifying,
Mysterious.
right? I generally feel for a world that looks at India from the eye, optics of confusion. Sometimes they are critic, they are skeptical. Because they don't understand sometimes what India is. So that made me go with Enigma India theme, because it's an enigma and I want to clear a lot of air around this enigma through guests like yours. I'm sure enigma is not new to you too. You have been.
I don't think any Indian would be surprised or shocked rather by enigma or chaos. I think we're a culture which has sort of learned how to ride chaos. And it's look at even if you go by the Western estimation, India is at least 6,000 years old. At least. If you go by our estimation, 10,000, their estimation, 6,000. 6,000 years ago, a civilization would have gone through a lot of enigma, and that has built up in our DNA. So I think Indian people have a different DNA. We are able to handle chaos and confusion as if it's a strength.
Yeah.
So
In fact, you rightly said, we just don't even handle. We rather take it in our stride.
it's part of our living.
Part of our living.
And there's nothing wrong in it. I think, and we know how to make things happen,
Hmm.
and we are very, if you meet a Western person, a Western scientist, entrepreneur, whatever, they will first look at, okay, do I have the resources I need to hit a target? If I don't, the answer is I can't do it. In India, it is like, whatever I have, where do I need to reach? Now let me figure out a path. Chandrayaan is an example of it.
Yes.
We did not have the Soyuz rocket. We did
Mm.
not have the Saturn V rocket or the
Mm.
Falcon 9 rocket.
Yeah.
We used the Bahubali, which
Yeah.
actually is called Bahubali, but it
Mm.
is only 1/6
Mm.
the thrust of Falcon 9.
Right.
Right? Falcon 9 has never landed on the moon,
Yeah.
but we have.
We have.
Why? How did we do that? We went
Yeah.
around the Earth. A
Right.
few iterations. Every
Mm.
time we went around, the speed went up, and then we
Mm.
went around the moon.
Mm.
Every time we went around, the speed slightly decreased.
Mm.
Right? And we managed it.
Mm.
Luna 25 was in a race against us, started well behind us,
Mm.
went much faster than us,
Right.
and ended in a crash.
So that speaks of a very unique element that we have is the way we look at problem. Taking example of yours itself, you are an educationist, you are almost scientist, you are who has been a bureaucrat and now jumped into the other side of the fence by being into the business or say entrepreneur. Um, Problem solving comes very naturally to you, it seems. What is your earliest memory that came in your mind to set up Homi Lab?
Earliest memory was around 2013.
Mhm.
Dr. Kalam and I, we used to teach a lot of. I was working from 2009
Yes.
to 2015 as advisor to Dr. Kalam, lived in the same house,
Mm.
and we, I know, both were two single men.
Mhm.
Basically, we used to talk about a lot of
Yeah.
things.
Of course, I have a lot on that
Right.
to
So
ask
we,
you.
so one of the things which we really were passionate about is how do
Mm.
you, and Dr. Kalam wanted to be a teacher.
Mm.
So I, as the advisor, had to do a lot of teaching with him. So we were
Mm.
doing a lot of teaching. And we realized that a lot of things which are taught, they're
Mm.
good.
Mm.
But are they making children and youngsters future ready?
Right.
Right? So you mentioned about that
Mm.
future readiness.
Mm.
70% of jobs which are created in the next now 7 years
Mm.
are not existing today. We've not
Right.
heard of them.
Mm.
Think of something like a social media influencer.
Yeah.
5 years ago, it was not a job.
Mm.
Think of something like a prompt writer. 3 months ago, it was not a job.
Not a job.
Right? So suddenly, you are seeing new jobs. This is now beginning to happen.
Right.
Very rapidly, things which you think are safe jobs
Mm.
will not exist.
Not
And
exist.
things which you cannot even imagine right now will
Mm.
become the mainstream jobs.
Mainstream.
So we thought, and it's not just about job, it's also about,
Mm.
joy of contributing something.
Yeah.
Job is sort of, it lives like a livelihood.
Mm.
But we're looking about an impact. What
Mm.
will create an impact, right?
Mm.
So we started working with children across India
Mm.
and the world on things which we believe would transform the world in the next 1 decade or so.
Mm.
And then we wrote a book. We started a book in 2014, published in May 2015, 2 months before Dr. Kalam passed away.
Mm.
That book was called Reignited.
Mm.
It's a blockbuster bestseller.
Mm.
Probably 500,000 copies across languages would have been sold. In that book, the message which Dr. Kalam and I we gave was different 8 dimensions in which the future
Mm.
would be determined.
Mm.
It's nanotechnology,
Mm.
archaeology, because when you go to other planets, very important, space sciences, things like the next generation of medicine and
Mm.
so on. And we believe that these are the careers which will define, and not exhaustive list, but
Mm. More or
one
less,
of the
they are the, yeah,
few which
yeah,
will define.
Totally.
And we wrote that book. And in 17, the publisher Penguin asked me to write a sequel to it because the book went so well.
Yeah.
So another 7, so 15 areas in which transformation will
Mm.
happen. And then during the COVID, because the whole digitization started happening,
Yeah.
that's when the thing which you mentioned, Homi Lab,
Mm.
came into a concept, because then you had so many digital tools which came up.
Mm.
So even how you teach education started changing, right?
Right.
So that's how Homi Lab came up. But the idea of Homi Lab is long ago, about almost a decade old now, where we wanted to teach future.
Mm.
And it's complicated. The national education policy also talks about it, but it's rather hard to predict. It's like shooting a really fast moving duck.
Mm.
You really have to figure out where to aim. You can't aim at the duck, you have to aim where it would be. So that's kind of thing which Homi Lab is about, and that's why it's a constantly changing process.
Right. Yeah, because you started with the space education course, and I remember vividly this moment when we were told that Homi Lab is coming to pitch, Srijan is coming to pitch, and your credentials spoke for itself. Phenomenal tenure with Mr. Kalam. You have been author, educationist, and I said, how can a person manage all of this and now setting up a startup in this space? And I remember the feedback of the investors, and which we shared, was that when you started to pitch your course of space education, introducing astronaut on moon, we were teleported. And we felt that if we were kids today and someone like you were introducing us space education, I'm sure at least I would have definitely been an astronaut. Okay, that's how mesmerized I was with the space. But look, all we had in the name of space education was the books, textbooks, which had a subject solar system.
Mhm.
Um, so that truly stood out. Your conviction spoke for itself. Your dedication to carve out a course by itself, I think, left investors mesmerized. I'm sure there are several takers and thousands of schools that are now part of the chain of yours, and you have been an educationist yourself. So tell me, with you have your school, you run your programs. How has that evolved in last few years? If you can share some light on that.
See, I think education as a whole, what has happened? If you go back and see a picture of a school, say in 100 years ago, right? It would be exactly the same as a classroom today. The
Mm.
blackboard has become a whiteboard, a
Yeah,
smart board, but it's the
yeah,
same concept,
yeah. The check, but
right?
the chalk and
And there's
board. Yeah,
there's nothing wrong in it. I have
right.
nothing against the
Mm.
school system or the way it is taught. That's fine. It is the bulk of the education will still happen that way,
Mm.
and it should happen that
Mm.
way. But what else has happened in 100 years? Man
Mm.
or humankind has
Mm.
learned to fly.
Mm.
We split apart the atom. We learned
Mm.
about electrons. We learned about antibiotics.
Mm.
We learned about computers. We
Mm.
landed on moon. Humans also landed on moon,
Yes.
right? And so many other things have happened.
Mm.
And now you got AI and deep learning and
Mm.
so on and so forth. So there are two types of learning. One is in terms of value building
Mm.
and value, and I may also say principles,
Mm.
the theories,
Mm.
they remain consistent, more or less.
Mm.
The laws of thermodynamics are
Yeah.
same. The
The
laws
theories
of
don't get
motion.
altered too often.
So
It's
they are
the
very,
Mm.
very well placed,
Mm.
positioned,
Yeah.
and it's a theory. It's not a
Yeah.
hypothesis
Yeah.
anyway. So
Yes.
Newton's law does not change.
Mm.
Neither does the value system, right? So
Mm.
people should be kind, honest, integrity, empathy. All these things are
Yes.
there. This can be packaged as a school. And I
Mm.
think nobody does a job better than school plus family,
Mm.
right? Spirituality also has a role to play.
Yes.
Though people sort of
I'm glad that you touched
discount
that
that.
point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we should
Mm.
discuss about it.
Yeah.
What has also started happening is the new things which are happening around us,
Mm.
the changes, the alterations. To make education fascinating, you
Mm.
have to have a mix of both.
Mm.
Even in our times, the problem was too much theory, no application. What is practical? Examples, A, B, C, D, that's it. The last line was example, but nobody remembered.
Mm.
Example-based learning did not
Mm.
exist then.
Mm.
But then the examples were also sort of
Mm.
not happening that fast. But
Mm.
today, every day or at least every month,
Mm.
something radical is happening.
Mm.
Take every month, right? Take this year.
Mm.
You had ChatGPT,
Oh,
first
yes.
which could not crack the law exam. Then by February it could crack the law exam.
Yes.
Then you had the SpaceX thing which happened.
Yes.
Then the Twitter transformation happened.
Mm.
Then the Chandrayaan 3 happened. Then the next month early we are going Aditya L1
Mm.
and so on and so forth. Then the Artemis will happen. This year will be full of so many new things which have happened.
Yes.
How do we teach children about that? How do we keep them abreast about it? And more than that, how do we keep them hooked onto that?
Mm.
And how do we use future as a tool to teach theories?
Mm.
Right now what we do is that
Mm.
we teach a theory and we give a present or a
Mm.
past example. But
Mm.
can we transform it? Take a spaceship, for
Mm.
example. If you open the hatch of a spaceship,
Mm.
what happens? Interstellar movie. Have you watched that?
Of course.
It blows up.
Okay.
That shot is there,
Mm.
right? And then what happens is, what is that law?
Mm.
That law is basically your
Mm.
the Boyle's and Charles law
Mm.
in action.
Mm.
If you could teach that from that experience, if you
Mm.
can start teaching what is Boyle's law, how
Mm.
does pressure and volume,
Mm.
balance itself.
Yes.
If you suddenly
Mm.
change the pressure
Mm.
from in the spaceship to
Mhm.
outside, which is
Right.
zero,
Right.
what will happen to the volume? It
Mm.
will suddenly
Mm.
expand. So the air would suddenly expand and it will be
Right.
an explosion. That's what happens in Interstellar.
Mm.
Now, if you could use Boyle's law there
Mm.
and explain explosion in a
Mm.
spaceship
Mm.
using Boyle's law,
Yeah.
the child will never forget it.
Absolutely.
So that is the futurism we can use to teach
You're
theories.
mentioning the element of education with examples and examples.
Futuristic
being
examples.
Futuristic
Because
example.
children want to do something in the future. They're not interested.
You know,
No child is interested to be doing something which is already being
Mm.
done.
Right.
If you teach a child that I'm going to you should make bridges,
Mm.
they'll not be interested.
Yeah.
Tell them you'll make bridges on Mars. They'll be interested.
Exactly. The curiosity itself takes over the
Yes.
imagination and interest.
Yeah, tell them how to build a... So if you say civil engineer, become a civil engineer, boring. If you tell, why don't you go to moon and try to build a building there using its soil, the regolith. And it's more exciting.
And
suddenly.
then he or she will be interested to know the dynamics on moon and stuff. No, interesting. That brings me to an interesting point here, which I've always learned, is that there is enough and more knowledge, scattered and sprinkled everywhere. There's no dearth of, want to search today how to get to Mars. You will get probably thousands and lakhs of, content to kind of read through. But I believe the space in education or information dissemination is lacking tools to remember and retain the right knowledge.
Correct.
How do you see that interplay, and how do you think in your journey you will embed these tools that they are retained? You spoke about that the child will never forget this. This is exactly. Can it be mass adopted? Can it truly help change the curriculum? Creating a lot of hooks and tools that they can retain this knowledge.
So your question has two parts. One is, and I'll just specifically point out, what do you remember from your education? What do you remember? What is the common trait? Either it is very exciting, or it was taught in a way which was very exciting.
Yeah,
it was very relatable to you. It was something which, this fascinates me. It could be the content, it could be the delivery, and probably both.
Yes, absolutely.
Correct.
In fact, I couldn't do well in certain subjects because I didn't like the delivery from the teachers.
That's what I was saying. Probably both.
Totally. Yeah,
because the good content delivered poorly is useless.
Useless. Totally.
Actually, a not so interesting content can be delivered in a very exciting way. For example, history can be taught in a very exciting way.
Exactly.
So those are the two things. Now, so that's pretty clear what we remember. How do we make children remember and recall something is by making the content something which is exciting and delivering it in a way which is exciting to them. How do we do that? The content has to be futuristic. Every child is interested in future. Today, the whole India is hooked onto Chandrayaan 3.
Yes.
Right? And it'll keep, I'm telling you, in 10 years, there'll be astronauts, which we will call Gagannauts, who will come out of because of this happened. Chandrayaan 3 is this whole broadcast.
What is Gagannaut?
Gagannaut is Indian astronaut.
Acha, okay.
Cosmonaut, astronaut,
so we already have a name for that.
Yeah. Astronaut is American, cosmonaut is Russian, Gagannaut is Indian. Taikonaut is Chinese, by the way.
And how did this happen?
We have a Gaganyaan project.
Okay, that's why. Oh, my interesting.
And we have an Indian space station called Gagan Space Station. 10,000 crore sanctioned 2035. You have to build it.
My God, the private sector space seems to be more boring because every head everywhere is called a CEO. But in this case, it will be different.
We'll call it the Gagan. So what I'm telling you. So this is what will excite a child, right? You have to make it fascinating topics and told in fascinating ways. How do we do that? The fascinating topic is futurism, as I told you, right? Anything which is futuristic is awe-inspiring because it's transformational. If I tell you how to live for 400 years, that's exciting. I want to know.
Yeah.
It's relatable. It's awesome, right? So there's a course. You should subscribe to it.
Okay. Wow.
How do you cure cancer? It's very relatable because everybody has somebody in the family who has either lost life or severely been debilitated because of cancer. So how do you solve cancer? That is very exciting for a child. How do you set up a colony on Mars? That's very exciting. Everybody wants to live there. So what I'm trying to tell you is that topic has to be exciting and futuristic is always exciting. Second is how do you deliver it? It can be very boring. It can be like a textbook. You read A, B, C, D, step 1, step 2, step 5, 7. It's not exciting. But if it's told in a way which is immersive, so if you've gone through our content, right? And I can give you some clips, so maybe you can even embed it in your video. I would take a child there and I would make an effort. I do it. I can't hire a trainer. We have zero trainers. There are research content writers, there are researchers, there are script writers, there are people behind camera, editors and all. But I will teach. You have to be there to do it. And the way we teach it is to immerse it. So if I teach you about Mars, I'll take you to Mars. I will imagine 2056. I will not tell you 2023 mein baith karke ki what will happen in 30 years.
Right.
No, I will take you to 2056 and work backwards from there. So it's difficult from editing point of view because, then you have to imagine everything. Behind me is that rocket which has landed on Mars and there's Martian dust happening and this is a Mars home we have built.
Yes.
And
I remember that entire
so we immerse you. Second is, now we've gone the next step. So what you've seen is part A. Part B is what we're building now. and we actually built three courses on it, is complete immersion. So using virtual reality, augmented reality, and even a gamification.
Right.
We can immerse a child into Mars and ask them to do this task so that they can live and play like a movie character, you know, at the same quality level as, say, a Grand Theft Auto is. You know, Grand Theft Auto, the popular game, right?
Yes,
and what does it mean? Grand Theft Auto is like a huge car, stealing cars in a big way, right? And but it has very good quality graphics.
Right.
So
But how are you going to adopt these ideas into education is what is left to the imagination.
Yeah, so that is an adoption cycle. You always get, in any transformational technology, there are early adopters. Some people are more forthcoming than others. We also learn as people adopt. That's why we have a relatively conservative approach in terms of, not overspending on marketing and, freebie de diya, ye kar diya, wo nahi karna. Let's have people who are interested, and then they will set the message out. In a classroom, the child who stands first, second, third is like brand ambassador, right? So you want those early adopters in class. But if the moment children get immersed, they'll never forget. So you can be for example, we have a simulation. We call them simulations, not games specifically, because they're simulators. They're not games, essentially. We have a simulator for being an astronaut, being a Mars settler. So you live on Mars, figure out how is it, the gravity, the rover, how do you gather water, how do you purify the atmosphere, how do you create the extra atmospheric pressure in a gamified environment.
Right.
So I want children to learn in a way. Learning has to be a consequence of something which they are pursuing. Right? If you make learning the sole objective, then it becomes bookish. Learn.
Yeah.
But if you're doing something and learning, it becomes a consequence.
Right.
It's a very roundabout way of telling them something.
Right.
So you experience Mars, beautiful graphics, and you're learning every time.
So, Srijan, does it mean that yes, you spoke about immersive experience is a big catalyst for keeping the interest of the student, engaged in the content. Has the latest technology like that you mentioned, augmented reality and AI, has helped educationists like yours to make immersive experience more effective, more engaging, and non-forgettable?
Absolutely. It has helped as much as writing would have been helped by a pen. But you don't write beautiful words just because the pen is beautiful, right? The pen is just a tool. What do you do with it is here. It's an imagination. So these tools have obviously become cheaper, more viable. There's better skill to find in India now. And there are softwares which can help you. But at the end of the day, it's imagination. So anything is as good only as your imagination could take it. Baki to coding hai. So coding is coding. So I have all respect for coding, but what to code is more important. The objective is important. The code can always be designed. So that becomes extremely important for us.
This is interesting. You mentioned about imagination, and it is said that things happen twice in life. One is in the mind. First is in the mind, and then in reality.
Yes.
It also conveys that there is something that is connecting us with the universe. So what we think is what we become. What we think loud happens. Okay. So what is this cosmic connection between you and me, and humans and cosmos as a whole? Are you a believer that within us lies a cosmos? Do you look at it that way? Because spiritually we do have that connotation.
This is a little long answer.
Okay.
Right?
We have all the time.
Take this bottle of water.
Yeah.
This will be about 200 ml, right? Approximately half a spoon of the water in this bottle is made with not hydrogen, but deuterium.
Okay.
Which is hydrogen with an extra neutron.
Okay.
This water,
Okay.
that deuterium water, would have been manufactured approximately 13.8 billion years ago. That deuterium was never manufactured beyond the birth of the universe.
Okay.
So when the elements were first formed, about 13.8 billion years ago, deuterium was formed. There is no deuterium which is formed ever again.
Okay.
Right? So you not just have universe here, you have the entire history of the universe here.
So you mean to say the water that is still flowing from the stream of Himalayas has
absolutely.
Elements which
were
there,
born, which were has atoms.
Yeah.
Let's call them atoms which were born when the universe was born.
Right.
The atoms inside your body. What is the most abundant element in your body?
Water.
element.
Element.
Which element?
H2.
You're right,
Yeah,
H2O.
yeah,
So what
H2O.
is element in it? H2O. H.
Yeah.
Double H, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
O is half.
Yes.
So you have the maximum number of atoms in your body is
Yeah.
hydrogen. H,
Yeah.
right? The second most abundant would be oxygen.
Oxygen.
Correct?
Yeah.
Because 70 something odd
Yeah,
percent is this.
75%. Yeah, whatever.
The maximum amount of elements, the most abundant element in the universe is also hydrogen. Stars are made of hydrogen.
Okay.
All stars are made of hydrogen.
Okay.
The second most abundant is actually helium, but helium is inert, so you can't exist in helium. The third is, so if you remove helium, the third one is oxygen. Your second, third. Your first is first. And then so on and so forth. You go the exact sequence of calcium, phosphorus, so on, so on. The exact sequence is in universe. You are nothing but a homogeneous mix of the same cosmos which is around you. So the difference between you and the universe as a composition is zero. You are the universe. And the hydrogen which is in your body would have traveled from some distant star which died 5 billion years ago and then exploded, and then its matter was thrown apart, and then it captured into our solar system, which then exploded, and your Earth was born, and then the Earth collided into this little planet, and then that planet also gave you something. But there are elements in your body which were born when the universe was nearly born, or some star would have died billions of years ago. So not only you're connected to the universe in terms of space and composition, you're connected to the universe across time.
Okay, so this is the finest, I don't know, explanation or theory or description which has come out in context of spirituality.
Aham Brahmas.
Okay.
This is I am one God.
I am, yeah, totally. So this is very interesting. If you ever wondered, what does it mean that there is cosmos within all of us? We are connected to universe. We are one with it. You heard it from Srijan. So this is very mesmerizing, and you know I'm on and off of studio at the moment. My mind is getting teleported, and I'm coming back in my this thing.
Because your mind is across time.
Cross time. We'll come to that as well.